Hello! Welcome to the Mother Days, everybody. I'm your host, Sarah Wright Olsen.
And I'm Teresa Palmer, and we have the most exciting guest today. We have Dr. Elliot Berlin. Whoop, whoop. He's like the most famous figure in the natural birthing, informed birthing world. Yes. Everyone, especially everyone in LA, whenever I'm around, I see they're pregnant. They're like, well, I've been going to my doctor. His name's Dr. Berlin. And I was like, yeah, we all know who Dr. Berlin is. Like, he has like 1 million patients. What are you talking about? Wow.
He's my goodness. Well, man in Hollywood.
He actually is. He really is. I'm going to read out your bio here, Dr. Berlin, because it's extensive and you have done lots of amazing things in your life and your career.
That's right.
So
I cannot wait to learn about me.
Dr. Elliot Berlin is a Los Angeles chiropractor who specializes in pregnancy and postnatal care. He has extensive experience in the care of women during and after pregnancy and is dedicated to helping new and expectant mothers achieve optimal health and comfort during this special time. So in addition to his chiropractic practice, Dr. Berlin is the founder of the Informed Pregnancy Project, which includes the popular, and I love it so much, the Informed Pregnancy podcast, Informed Pregnancy blog, and the new streaming service, Informed Pregnancy Plus. Woo! Give it up for Dr. Berlin.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
You are the dude. You are the dude.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously.
As if you were bored. You and your wife are the two busiest people that I know. And you have so many people who love you both. So what you guys do is just amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so honored. I would do anything to hang out in this little group here. Oh my God. When I see you together now, I think, out of these two people came 7.
I know.
Whoa.
Isn't that weird? It's a lot.
That's weird.
So crazy.
I always get double takes. People are like, wait,
I know.
Like what?
I know.
They're all yours? And I was like, yeah. They all came out that vagina. Yes, they did. They're like, that's too much information, but thank you.
My wife and I, because we have 4, also when they see us, they assume that I'm the one who carried them. Because she's so tiny. They're like, oh, you make sense.
Oh, my God. That is not true.
And it's not my fault. My wife insisted on getting pregnant with our second before I had a chance to lose the baby weight from the first one. And then I just gave up.
Sympathy way. We talk about it.
How dare. She is so tiny. She's a snapback. So that's amazing. Well, I feel like Teresa and I are your OG crew. Like, we've been around with you for ages.
Totally. And on the podcast back in I don't know, second year. Now we're in our 10th or 11th year.
That's amazing. Yes. Wow.
And by the way, your episodes are still popular, evergreen. People still come and listen to them.
Yes.
Aww.
Well, then everybody on here, go listen to our episodes. You get to hear. It's basically like listening to birth stories and stuff in real time because we went on right after or right before babies were born. So
during the pregnancy, I remember one time in the studio, I think you
we were both pregnant.
You were both pregnant and I had my belly, and then it just felt like such a trio of people in there. And then I remember you laid down, maybe I adjusted you on the floor in there or something like that.
Yes, you did.
And then we took that picture. And I actually remember how good I felt that night because I think you were probably due in 2 or 3 weeks. And for the first time ever, a pregnant woman had a bigger belly than I did. And I was like, okay,
oh my gosh.
Thank you, Sarah. Right,
I really
Olsen.
did. I have to put that picture up with this because my belly, I completely carry out the front of my body. So that belly was out there big time.
And
Which
then,
is crazy.
3 weeks later, there was no belly at all. And I was like, I'll have what she's having. I don't
like
know how
that.
you did it.
Yeah.
It was before Ozempic. I have no idea.
Well, I actually wanted you to tell. I wanted you to tell everybody So I don't know that everyone knows what informed pregnancy means, and so I would really love for you to let everybody know, what is informed pregnancy? Why is it so important to you? Why is it something that you have been talking about for, more than 10 years? And just tell us all about it.
Well, I'm a medical guy at heart. I was going to be a medical doctor. I was doing everything. I was working in ambulances and emergency rooms when I was 17, 18, and was going to be some awesome surgeon. And then I had a big step back from drugs and surgery when my father died when I was 19, partially from a medical mix-up. And I love medicine. I respect it very much. It's incredible what we can do. But I also realized the downsides of it. And I thought I want to be on the more complementary side. I want to work with the body, not against the body. And I studied a bunch of alternatives, and I fell in love with chiropractic and massage together. So I smushed them together to make the peanut butter and chocolate of holistic healthcare.
Oh, and it's the best.
I was trying to say the word chirossage. Is it chirossage?
Chirossage.
Chirossage.
Yeah, I made it up. I make up a lot of stuff. Chirossage. People call it chirossage now that I'm getting more of a gray beard.
It did sound like a Dr. B made up word. Chirossage. That's what I was like, am I pronouncing it right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Any way you pronounce it is right. And then, so my wife and I, we struggled with fertility. In the end, medicine gave up on us, and we just took time to heal ourselves. We were so broken. And by the time we healed and we thought, okay, how can we become parents if we can't conceive on our own? We found out we were pregnant. And then every 2 years, another baby popped out. We couldn't turn it off. So when we opened our practice, it was like mind, body. And it was general health and wellness with an eye on boosting natural fertility. And, first year we had a couple of babies come through. The next year, even more babies. And that's how we got in pre and postnatal care in general. They're like, work on us now that we're pregnant. I'm like, oh, okay. And now that we're in labor, now that we're, giving birth and had the baby. So the thing is, I come from a medical background. And so they would ask questions, all sorts of questions during pregnancy that I had no idea about. And so I'd just go do research. And some of those questions, the ones that came up again and again and again, were about, hey, I had a C-section last time. I'd really like to have a vaginal birth this time. Do you know any doctors who support that, or why they wouldn't support it? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. So I would do homework. Same with breech. My first baby was vaginal, but this one's breech. They're saying I have to have a C-section. Why? I'm like, I don't know. And so I would just do homework. And the more homework I did, the more I realized I don't know that it's black and white that these options shouldn't exist. It seems like there's a lot of gray. It seems like no matter what happens, you take obstetric risks all the time. And like some people are better candidates or not as good candidates. And so I said, let me compile this information in an easy to digest form. And I started writing a blog that turned into a magazine, and then eventually the podcast, and now the streaming site. So it's just really important, because I see that in today's day and age, we're not exposed to pregnancy, birth, postpartum, breastfeeding. Women are not exposed to that the way we were when we used to live with our families in the village on the family property. And so now, at that point, you had always exposure. You saw normal pregnancy, you saw normal breastfeeding, you saw normal childbirth, and you helped them. And then when it was your turn, they all surrounded you and helped you.
That's right.
But now we moved away from that, and we don't have the village, and it makes it a much more difficult thing to do on your own. And so all these professions popped up to fill in the void. We have doulas, and we have childbirth educators, and we have lactation consultants, and we have baby nurses, and all those things that is trying to fill in for the lack of village that used to be there. But because, while you might be able to fill that in, because we don't have the exposure, sometimes when you go through it, it's the first time and you have no idea what to expect. You don't know what choices are available to you. You don't know the pros and cons of different choices. And if you don't know, oftentimes nobody's going to tell you.
Yeah.
And I picture a time when medicine, it's not my time, but I picture a time when medicine was this simple. Somebody was sick, you called the family doctor, they pulled up on a horse with a little black bag, and inside there was like a thermometer and some booze and some aspirin. And the thermometer told you whether you were going to live or die, and the booze and the aspirin kept you comfortable until it happened, Yes. Now it's much more complex.
Right.
They don't come to us, we go to them, and doctors, healthcare providers are pulled in so many different directions,
So true.
There's what's in your best interest, which is very important to most doctors. That's why they go into it. But then there's also, this option will only take me an hour. This one will take me 20 hours and I get paid the same. So
Wow.
do I want to offer both options to people? Which one will insurance pay for or not pay for? Which one is going to give me as a provider more risk, more liability, which doesn't necessarily mean your risk goes up, but do I want to take on more risk so that you have more choices? And none of these are nefarious, with just human beings trying to make decisions.
Yeah.
And the influences are pulling in so many different directions. Only one of those categories is what's in your best interest, my patient. So because of that, if you want to know what the options are and be a part of the decision-making, choose your path among many, you have to know the pros and cons. You have to know what options are available to you. And that's what informed pregnancy is all about.
Oh, that's an amazing answer. And I so appreciate that, because I actually remember the very first time that I was on your table, someone had told me to go and see you because I had something had happened with my rib when I had a cold or something, and I was coughing, and my rib had sort of dislodged or something, and I was having a lot of pain. And my friend was like, "Oh, you should go see Dr. Berlin." And I remember laying on your table and you were asking about my care provider and the birth I was going to have. And I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm having, I guess a hospital birth, and I guess it's at this place. And the, doctor that I've been seeing for a long time, she kind of doesn't really know who I am every time that I go in there. And, I don't feel super comfortable with her, but I guess that's just what I'm supposed to do. And you were like, wait, what? You were like, no, actually, that's not your only option. And you told me, you were like, have you ever thought about having a home birth? And I was like, no, because I don't know anything about it. And then you started talking about it. And I was like, okay, I want to go do some research and learn more about this. And that one conversation birthed my entire passion for the birth world. It's where I already was so excited about being a mom and learning about all of this stuff. But that conversation completely changed the trajectory of everything else that was going to come after. And I so appreciate that. But you opened my mind to other options. And I think a lot of times we kind of get, we feel like this is our only option here. It's like, okay, you're with an OBGYN, your OBGYN is going to be your doctor, and you're just going to go through step A, B, C, D, E. And, when you say you want to have a natural birth, I think I want to have a natural birth, then they kind of laugh at you a little bit. Because that happens.
Yeah.
and then you're like, oh, I feel a little shamed by that. That felt weird, and then, but you just keep going through the steps because you think that's all that is available. And it's not all that's available. So I so appreciate that message that you've been putting out there, do the research and that there's just more to it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think my agenda is informed choice. It's not you should have your baby here or you should have your baby there or with this kind of provider or that kind of provider. It's if you don't know the options, you can't even make an informed choice. You can't choose the path you would want to take. Look, if I drive from Los Angeles to San Francisco, there's a million ways to get there. Yeah. If I just go into Waze, it's going to take me however it wants me to go. but maybe I want the most scenic route, even though it's not the shortest. Or maybe I need the shortest route, even though it's not pretty. Or maybe I need to stop by a Krispy Kreme donut on the way. I don't know.
All three.
Always,
at least one. On that type of trip, at least two.
I mean, hello.
Well, I love.
So it's
I
about
love that.
Yeah, it's just about exploring your options so that, now Sarah Wright Olsen walked into my office and two things were happening. It just blew my mind. There's this like very earthy, confident, natural-minded, healthy young pregnant woman who just screams, I can do this on my own, like natural. I want to feel it. I want to be a part of it. I don't want to numb myself to it. And on the other hand, it's like, yeah, you just do the birth thing, right? You just go to the hospital with your doctor and have a birth, right? And so I felt really compelled to say, have you explored all your options? And that's what informed pregnancy is all about. And then you traumatized Teresa.
And then traumatized Teresa.
And I had PTSD after witnessing that birth. I was like, and I cannot do this. I'm 13 weeks pregnant. I'm at her home birth. I'm not giving birth. So I don't know how this baby's coming out. It's probably just not going to be able to come out. I know. I went home like hyperventilating to Mark, like, no. But you were so amazing, Sarah. Well, the one thing I want to say is we use informed birth a lot. We've been using that term now. I feel like you coined it and Sarah and I use it a lot because it's a really nice non-judgmental way to talk about birth. Like, inform yourself. If you decide, all right, I've learned all the different avenues and I would feel safer birthing in a hospital and I want to have my epidural and great, because you've learned everything and you know what works for you. And so I always feel like saying informed birth is wonderful because it doesn't leave anyone out of the picture. It's like, hey, there's a smorgasbord. Go pick what works for you. If you decide you want to have a medical induction or if you want to have a birth, have a cesarean or have an epidural and that feels safest to you, then go that route. But if you're open to doing a home birth or having a water birth, it's just learning all about it. I still have people today being like, but if you give birth in water, like the baby drowns. And I was like, no, we haven't done our reading, have we? So let's just learn a little bit more about how that all works. They're like, but if it's the head stuck under there for too long, the baby's going to die. And it's so interesting because you become pregnant and then you have an array of different books you can read from and podcasts to listen to, and you pick your information from so many different places that sometimes you do feel a little bit lost. And that's why I always tell people to go onto your podcast because your podcast is so wonderful. You're talking to the mothers and like it's happening in real time. I love this segment that you have where they're pregnant. You do like the before they give birth and then the after. So they're pregnant, they're talking about their wishes and their dreams and sort of what they're calling in for their birth. And then you get to speak to them after the birth to see like where they had to pivot or how they had to embrace what their experience was. It may have been a little bit different from what their plan was, but this is how they handled it in the moment. And I think that that's very empowering for listeners. So I really appreciate that that's a part of your setup. It's so well done.
Thank you. I'm trying to get like, what did that person learn from their own experience that maybe they couldn't have learned without going through it, but somebody else could learn because they went through it.
Yeah.
And also people are surprised to hear that we have episodes on gentle cesarean. We have episodes on epidural. I'm not an advocate for natural birth. I'm an advocate for informed choice. And
that's right.
The thing is, it's a lot easier today to have a much more medicalized birth. If you want to be induced, they'll induce. If you want to have a C-section, you'll have a C-section. Even if there's not really medical necessity for it, it's just getting harder and harder to have like an undisturbed birth where you just go have your baby and, if you don't need anything, they just leave you alone. And so I recently, now it's a couple of years, I called a doctor because I had a young, very strong, healthy patient who wanted to have a cesarean birth, even though she was perfectly healthy. The baby was in great position, and her feeling was her mom had a very challenging birth with complications and never fully recovered. So for her, the trauma, the ancestral trauma, in her mind, she just did not want to deal with that. And there are some people, by the way, who just want their doctor to make all the choices for them.
Right.
They don't want to be involved in decision making. They don't want to have any responsibility for that. And so they'll pair up great with a doctor who is sort of more paternalistic like that. In this girl's case, you know, I could relate to her OB. She didn't want to do a C-section because it was wholly unnecessary. And she thought, you're going to have more kids and that future pregnancies are going to be more complicated. And she was really trying to talk her out of it. And my patient broke down crying on the table, just saying, I really want this. I think I'm going to switch doctors so I can get it. And I'm like, let me talk to your doctor. And I basically had a heart to heart with her saying, like, it's not, you know, I advocate all the time the other way, but I'm advocating this way too, because it's not our choice. Like if you kind of force her to have a vaginal birth and she has a rough time with it, either physically or emotionally, like that's going to be on you. Like we should really respect what she wants. And so she did, and she had a great cesarean birth. And, you know, I was glad that she was able to get that information.
And it's so nice that, I mean, you know, as one of your patients or both of your patients here, you know, being your patient, you feel so safe with you and feel like you're a champion, and like no matter what the decisions are, and, you know, having these conversations with you. I just love hearing that story, because I know what that feels like to sit down on your table and be like telling you all of these things that are going on, and you're so great at talking through all of those things. So that's amazing that you were able to be there for her with something that was really, you know, tough and scary. And you know, I don't think I've ever heard of a doctor saying, no, I don't want to give you a C-section, you know, and that's just not, I don't know. I feel like they're like, yeah, sure, of course. Because I mean, that feels like the norm these days. But I'm curious, you know, because you do these interviews all the time, and you're also a doula, which not many people know. And I don't know that there's that many male doulas out there. What is do you have like a favorite birth that you've been to, or like something that was, you know, something that stands out to you that you kind of always go back to in your mind that you want to tell us about?
Oh gosh, there's so many. First of all, a lot of people are surprised when they see me to hear that I'm a doula. They're like, that must be the hairiest doula that there ever was.
I've had you at my birth. If anyone has any questions, come to me. I know how amazing he is.
Miracle worker.
Frankly, I don't think I am the... Oh, thank you. I don't think I am the hairiest doula. I think they're just looking in the wrong places.
That's
Some of
right.
those doulas are very hippie-like.
Hey.
So there's that. So since you brought it up, that birth that I was at with you was one of the most crazy births, memorable births I've been to. I walked into the hospital, I'm checking at the nurse's station, and I'm like, who's watching porn? Because that's what it sounded like from the nurse's station. I'm like, who is like they should turn that down. And then, she's in labor and delivery too. So as I'm walking over to labor and delivery too, I'm like, it's getting louder. I'm like, what is somebody watching porn in Sarah's room?
My God.
And I crack open the door, and this is the vision I see. Sarah is literally riding up and down Eric like he's a stripper pole, making the most like not kosher noises.
Not kosher.
I was like, I don't even. I was like, I'm not even going to walk in there because. What could I possibly add? What could anybody add? But what could this big, hairy, Orthodox man-Jew add to that equation? So I waited outside for a little bit until I heard you say something about my, like, where's Berlin? I'm like, okay, it's my time. And I went in there and just...
Go time.
It's go time.
Being in that room, especially in the hospital, right? You see that more at home, but especially in the hospital, I don't even know how you did it. You blocked out the surroundings. You were in your own world. You were high on your own drugs. And you just had the strength when it got really intense to surrender and to lean on the people around you, on Eric, on your nurse that was there. That I have a story that I don't even know if you know about that nurse. That was kind of incredible. And then to just see you, poor Dr. Goldberg, to see you like, you know,
grabbing Dr. Goldberg
grabbing his
on
butt.
his ass.
Yes, yeah, you grabbed his butt. She thought it was like the corner of the table, and she just kept grabbing and squeezing it really hard. She's like, ah! And he's like,
she's like, this is the only time I could get a feel.
He told me the next day. I was mortified. He's like, okay. He came in and sat down, like big smile on his face, and he was just like, you know that you were like grabbing my ass the whole time, right? And I was like, what?
No.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
At points, my head and his ass. And so
that's right.
And then you came to the end of the table. I've never seen anybody do this, just on your own, like reacting to what you were feeling and kind of holding onto the sides of the table or holding onto him and scooting your butt like below the surface of the table.
Yes.
As you were getting ready to push. And I've never seen that maneuver before and they were nervous. They thought you were going to fall off, liability. And then, and that nurse got nervous a few times.
She did.
And now it's coming back to me, and Goldberg's like, oh, just relaxes. Like this is one of his magical things. He was able to kind of tell her it's going to be okay, don't worry, without making her feel like she's worrying for no reason.
That's right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It was very cool. But you were the star of the show there,
balance.
and then just pushing out that baby. I remember because I once ordered a twin mattress on Amazon for my kid's bed, and it came. It's gonna follow through. It's gonna come around, and it came in a crib mattress size box. And I was like, oh shoot, because there's a bunch of. I ordered the wrong one.
Yeah.
And then I called them like, no, that's the right one. Open it up. Like, can't be. I opened it up, and when I took it out, it went. And it became twin size. And that's what happened when Esme came out of your body.
That's
It was
right.
like, I'm like, wait, this is familiar. I've seen this before. I was like, what? And you were like, what's going on? And I was like, she's walking around looking for a sandwich. I don't know. And how that came out of, even though you had the big belly, you have a tiny, you birthed a toddler.
I did. I had I had a 4-year-old.
And just so on your own drugs. And yeah. And Wyatt was hilarious too. Like, checking to see if you pooped and stuff like that.
I know.
It's
oh my
so
God.
That was such an inspiring birth, and for you to be able to do that in the hospital and just like zone everything out. I don't know what happened with that nurse. Is I am face blind. I don't recognize faces ever. And my wife, my kids, my mother. I got a haircut. I don't even recognize. I like see myself in the mirror and I panic. I'm like, who is that? That's how it is, intense like that.
Wow.
And so I was waiting outside your room. I came in, and then the nurse was really good nurse. And we're all kind of laboring there for a while. And just the body chemistry, the body communication, there wasn't a whole lot of talking going on. You just sort of indicated what you want or don't want, what you need or don't need without talking. And people around you were able to like puzzle together and make it happen. And I was so impressed with her that when you and Eric went into the restroom, you had to pee.
Yes.
And you and Eric went to the restroom. I was like, I need to know this nurse. Now, in face blindness, the worst is uniform. Every nurse in the hospital is green scrubs with their hair pulled back in a pony. They all look exactly the same. And so I reached my hand out. I could have sworn I never met her, to introduce myself. And she puts her arm around my shoulder.
Oh my God.
And she says, hey, Elliot, how's Alyssa and the kids?
Oh my gosh.
And I am like mortified. I'm like, what? You know me and you know my family? Like, who are you? And I'm trying to figure out who it is. Like, how do I know you? And the only way you can do it is by looking at the little name tag that they wear, the little badge.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But this is what happens. Women always wear it either like on a boob or so close to a boob.
Oh no, so you didn't want to go and look down.
No, I'm already mortified, and the room is lit by fake tea lights, and I'm trying to look at the.
That's true. I made it very dark.
I'm looking at that. I'm trying to read her boob. It's just awful, and I'm like, why? Why do you guys wear the name tag on your
the
boob?
boob?
Like you don't even know if that's your name or if you've named your boob. So when I could finally see it, it said Ashley. So that was memorable.
That was memorable.
And so, that's very memorable.
Turns out she's Ashley.
and turns out she's Ashley, and she was at one of your births. Is that what happened?
No, she was not at one of my births, but I had seen her before birth, and she met my wife through the birth community, and so we had been to a conference together and stuff like that. But out of context, no way I would figure it out. So your birth, look, the ones that are most memorable to me are my 4 kids when they came out. And my wife is incredible, rock star. Our first baby was 42 hours. Completely unmedicated, except for 400 milligrams of Advil, which I kept taking every 4 hours for my ridiculous headache. I was like, and I don't really like taking medication. I just didn't want to have to deal with all my screaming and primal noises that I was making.
It's so hard, isn't it?
It's so hard. It is so hard.
Not easy. So she's amazing. Every single one of our births was so unique and special and different, and she just really blew my mind with that first one, and then each one after that. And then one last birth I would say is just there's so many, but this one, there's a birth called Miss America Home Birth on our podcast that I think is a great listen. It's first time mom. She was Breech is how I met her. Baby turned, and then she's like, wait, I think I need you at my birth, and she gives birth in her apartment, home birth first time, and never really had any fear.
Wow.
Like everybody's excited and nervous at the same time. Sometimes very nervous or anxious and just a little excited. Sometimes super excited. Sometimes moaning like it's an inappropriate film for me to watch. But but she never. It was it was all power. It was all just the power to surrender, the power to let lightning move through her. And she was surrounded. She had intentions all over the place, and she had done a lot of work to get there. But once birth came, it just moved very smoothly from stage to stage, and never fear. She had this little 5-pound dog licking her face during every contraction.
Oh my God.
It was just the most beautiful combination of things. And that I was like, you have to come on and talk about how you got there. And she's like, well, it was my hypnobirthing instructor who was also the doula. And she's like, if we can all come together, then we can figure it out. And that's what we did. So I would say first 4 are my wife. That Sarah Wright Olsen birth, it's burned.
It's right up
it's
there.
burned in the brain.
I leave an impression, guys. I gave Teresa PTSD. I'm a self-proclaimed Dr. Goldberg's favorite patient. He never said that, but I say that. One of them. And 11-pound baby that sticks with you. And somehow I always do end up getting into a position where I look like I'm gonna fall, or like falling. Even with winter, I was in like the weirdest like split squat situation, leaning back, and a nurse is like holding up my body and like all of that. So, but yeah, that is wow.
You are, Dr. B, the person that people go to when they have breech babies. So whenever I'll get someone will be like, oh my God, so-and-so is breech. I'm like, well, obviously you've already gone to see Dr. B, right? And they're like, no, wait, who? I'm like, the breech doctor. Like he's the one that you need to go see. You've got such,
That's right.
I mean, how, so is that just became known as being able to do that? Is it, how hard is that? And how many sessions does it take to sort of get a baby into that optimal birthing position? Or is it just different for every baby?
Yes, and absolutely. So first of all, there's so much pressure because so few practitioners deliver breech babies vaginally now. So it's like there's a lot riding on it for a lot of people. And why that is, we discuss a lot in the movie that we made, Heads Up, The Disappearing Art of Vaginal Breech Delivery. And in that movie, you can see a first-time mom giving birth in her apartment right around the corner from here. Breech, it's incredible to see. And she is also as a kite on her own drugs.
Wow.
But I think in basically, I was born breech in 1974. I came out breech.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure they took one look at me and they're like, we're not doing this crap ever again. I don't know what happened, why it
like,
stopped
no.
around then.
You broke it. You broke the mold.
I broke the mold. But I was like, I think I came out okay. But then I guess it's been a lifelong mission to help other people. The premise with chiropractic and breech babies is this: we don't manually turn babies. The idea is babies want to be head down at the end of pregnancy. And we say that because in the first pregnancy at around 28 weeks, 50% of babies are still not head down yet. They're moving all over, head up, head down, sideways. Just 4 weeks later, at 32 weeks, about 10% of babies are not head down yet. So they have this massive migration between 28 and 32 weeks when they start to run out of room. And then at birth, it's only 3 or 4%. So the pattern continues. Once they run out of space, they want to go head down. The shape of a typical uterus and the shape of typical baby, when there's no more room, is most conducive for them to be head down. So if they don't go there, there's usually a reason for it. It could be something structural that we can't do anything about. The placenta could be right in their face. The cord could be short with the placenta up high. The cord could be wrapped around them funny. They may have a ton of fluid, which means they're not running out of space and they don't really have an incentive to go head down. They may not have enough fluid. So even though it's healthy, it's not an abnormally low number of fluid. It's low enough that they can't move around in there very well.
Interesting.
But functionally, the low back, hips, and pelvis are supposed to be very relaxed, very open. The pelvic bone is not one big bone. It's a bunch of bones connected by ligaments and cartilage, and it's supposed to be able to expand and contract and accommodate the baby's movements and facilitate the baby's movements. But you get people for various different reasons who come in and their low back, hips, and pelvis are super tight. And the ones who are extra strong, it's even more rigid, tight and strong together. The strong is very healthy, but together with the tightness, this functional shortening becomes very restrictive. And so you have this rigid pelvis with a lot of tightness. When the baby runs out of the room, it's no wonder that they really want to go up under your rib cage where there's more space.
Right.
We don't try to move them. We try to open up and restore that function, that laxity that's supposed to be there, that your body's trying to do hormonally. We can get in there and massage up those tight muscles around the hips and pelvis. We adjust the bones that are stuck, the joints that aren't moving, restore motion around those bones, and see what the baby does with that. So it depends how many sessions. It is somebody, the first session we learn, it's both diagnostic and therapeutic. Are you super tight, stiff, and rigid, or are you loose and open? Maybe there's not that much to do. And if you are real tight, then when we start working on you, do you melt like butter, or your body really resisting hard? And based on that,
I melt like butter.
Yes, this is a perfect. You guys should start a podcast.
Oh my God. I remember when you were doing that, like the massage. I was like, I had to breathe through it like I was in labor. I was like, I'm just going to breathe through this. My body was resisting so much. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I was sore the next day.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah, that is intense. Oh my gosh. But it's amazing because it really does open you up so much. And that's the reason why I wanted you at my second birth, because my baby was so big. And I was like, I know that I'm going to need some extra assistance there. And it was so nice to be able to have it. I actually want to ask you about something, because you were the first person that I knew that had COVID at the begining of the pandemic.
Oh.
And
I like to get shit out of the way early.
Yeah, get it out of the way. But I feel like, I can't remember. I feel like either the whole world had just shut down or it was about to, because I know schools and stuff were starting to close and all of that. But I had heard from a friend that you were headed to the ICU, and I was like completely freaked out and started writing Alyssa. And I spoke to you a bit afterwards, but I know that whole experience was pretty intense, and that the follow-up to that, which I'm sure that there are a lot of other people out there that had some, some kind of crazy experiences with COVID, that there was, it was kind of a lot, especially when you were one of the, first people that you probably knew that were getting COVID. So can you talk a little bit about that and sort of the aftermath of that?
Sure. One night, it was very innocent. I was eating these delicious little bats. And, no, I'm just kidding.
Super innocent.
In Wuhan.
That's not true.
Wait, I forgot to tell everybody he was in Wuhan
in this weird lab, and he was just working.
Yes, my friends call me Wu.
Of 2019.
Oh God.
What happened? Look, everything shut down. We shut our practice down even though we didn't have to because we're medically necessary, I guess. But they were also saying 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet. And I didn't really understand how you can do a massage from 6 feet away or a chiropractic adjustment. I was like, guys, let's shut down for 2 weeks, see what happens, and we'll regroup. Yeah. And about a week later, I started feeling really awful, and my symptoms were not normal. I never lost taste and smell. I had awful bouts of stomach unhappiness, and then it turned into a cold and a fever, and the fever just went up really high, and then I couldn't breathe. So I went to the hospital. They didn't even have COVID tests yet. They were just, I mean, they did, but you could only get one if you were like in the hospital or... And it was like a 2 to 3 day response time to find out. Oh my God. But they did do a chest x-ray. So my wife took me in, they kicked her out. Nobody can come with you. Mm-hmm. And they did triage and they did a chest x-ray. I'm in this like sealed glass room. I actually remember because the nurse came in and I was having such a hard time breathing. She's like, you can take off your mask now if you want to. And she was like all suited up like hazmat. And I was just like, oh my God, you don't mind if I take off my mask? Like, just, it blew my mind, the compassion and the sort of, I don't know, the confidence and just the heroism that these people had coming in around you and trusting their PPE. And nobody knew if they got it, what would happen to them. And they diagnosed me based on a chest x-ray, everything going on in my lungs that COVID did. And they put me in a normal room and they gave me hydroxychloroquine. And later that night, no idea if it's related or not, but that's all they had. Later that night, my oxygen level crashed really low and I got rushed to the ICU. And I remember it was really scary. Also, when I got in there, they were like, we have to start 4 IVs on you right now. I'm like, 4 IVs? Like, I'm not a pregnant woman. I can't take needles. And the whole thing was, you're just alone in a room, and even the doctors don't come in. It's a glass room, so they call and talk to you from the other side of the glass. The nurse, they would come in once a shift, mostly because they were worried about running out of gloves and gowns and things like that. Mm-hmm. So they would try to come in once or twice a shift max, carrying like too many things, like a waiter that has too much stuff on their tray, get everything done during that time frame. It was pretty intense. And I'll tell you this, when I got rushed to the ICU, I got a text message like an hour later from none other than Dr. J Goldberg. I have no idea how he found out I was there. And he wrote, I am so sorry you're here today as a patient and not as a provider. And if there's anything I can do for you personally or professionally, reach out right away. Don't hesitate.
I loved him so much.
I just thought to myself, like, what's he gonna do for me professionally? So I wrote to him like, well, I haven't had a pap smear in forever.
Of course you did.
and without like no pause, he texts back, I'll be right up.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I'll tell you one other thing about Dr. Goldberg, and then I'll just tell you the rest of COVID. He and I worked together many times at birth, and hundreds of times, just patients back and forth that we were co-treating with, and never. So he died over the weekend. His funeral was on a Wednesday. Dr. Katz asked for people, if possible, to Zoom instead of going in person. So that's what I did. Right after it was over, I had a patient, and it was a new patient. And I look at her chart and it says, who can we thank for referring you? And it says Dr. J Goldberg. I'm like, oh my God. And then I was so wrenched from the funeral. It was like hilarious and tragic at the same time.
Yeah, it was.
And I walk into there, I'm like, I'm so sorry about Dr. Goldberg. And she just lost it also. We both lost it. And 10 minutes of just, this was her third baby. She's been with him since she was, many years before she started having kids. And she said, he just referred me to you on Thursday.
Oh my God.
And he asked me to give you a message.
What was it?
And I was like, what? 10 years we're working together. He never sent a message through a patient. And I said, what's the message? And she said, he wanted me to tell you that he's better looking than you and funnier than you.
Oh my God.
And I was like, damn that guy. Damn that guy. Like,
That's what he went out on?
He got the last word. And I can't even tell him. I'm like, all right, 50% ain't bad. Like 1 out of 2. I can't even tell him.
Oh my God.
That was Dr. Goldberg.
Wow.
I mean,
You two
holy cow.
together are like,
amazing.
that would just be the funniest room. Just
It
Sarah,
is the
you had
funniest room.
the
I
two of
had
them. You had the two of them.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my God.
this is the funniest thing about Sarah, too. She would make these very primal noises. Okay, whatever. But also like a little bit much more nice than I made it. And then the second it's over, like Jay would like jab in a joke and she'd just be laughing and relaxed.
Should be in the
until the next
lulls.
one came. Yeah, it's like mind blowing. All right, so COVID, it got worse, and then one night I just I put my bed back to try to get a little rest. I hadn't slept, and I stopped breathing. I couldn't breathe. It just was the last straw that closed off my airway. I hit the panic button. I tried to move. I was reading in the headlines that maybe if you're on your belly, it's easier. And I tried to move, but I had all that 4 IVs and the breathing apparatus and all sorts of things. And I was just about blacked out. The nurse was like, I hear you, I'm coming. But I put on my gown and my gloves and my mask and my booties and my face shield. And by the time she came in, I was blacking out. And that was it. That was like the next day they came in, we're going to put you on a ventilator. If that happens again, we may not be able to save you. And while this doctor's talking me through the glass about getting my consent to go on a ventilator and telling me, I remember he said this, he goes, because here's how it works. We're going to start a urinary catheter and then we're going to knock you out. And then I'm like, what, like, is there any reason we can't do that in the opposite order?
Yeah, exactly.
Like once
Why do I have to feel that?
Talk about informed choice.
Oh my God.
And while we're having this conversation, the nurse says, doctor, he's been breathing a little bit better today. And the doctor said, does it feel easier? I'm like, a little less hard. And he's like, you know what, let's not intubate, let me come back at the end of my shift. And by the time he came back, it was a little easier yet. For the first time, they turned down my oxygen level and my blood level of oxygen did not crash.
Oh my God.
And so he said, let me see, maybe tomorrow we can do it. And, every day after that, it got better. And thank God I didn't really need very much after that. And the last thing was to recover that kept me in the ICU is my blood pressure, which is normally high, was really low. It was like 80/40.
Wow.
And I couldn't get up. They're like, you can't stand or you're going to pass out. And I remember the nurse came in and she said, look, Elliot, if we can't get your blood pressure to go up, we're going to have to give you this medication that can only be administered through an IV in the jugular vein in your neck.
Oh, what?
And I was like, well, Diane, I'm pretty sure you just solved the problem because as soon as you said that, I felt my blood pressure. It may be overcompensating now.
And did it?
I don't know how it got up exactly, but I did not get that IV thing.
Thank
I
goodness.
was actually she said, if we can't get your blood pressure, I'm like, how do I get it up?
Yeah.
So I started flapping my arms a lot and kicking my legs around, and it was taking my blood pressure every 10 minutes.
Jeez.
So I would flap for 10 minutes and see what happened. I'm like, that went up a little bit, so I'm going to do it, And then you're just in this glass room like you're at the zoo.
You're alone.
And
yeah.
at one point, I
God.
glanced because the whole staff is all around you looking at you. At one point I glanced and my nurse was like, what the hell is he doing? Are we going to have to get psych in here? And I'm just kicking and like trying to fly out of there. It looked like I was trying to fly out. I don't know if it was that. I started thinking about mean things people said to me over the years and it just went up. But I will tell you, honestly, I'll tell you what really I think did the trick. This is 100% true. I turned on my phone at some point because I couldn't close my eyes. I couldn't go to sleep. I kept thinking I was going to die after that incident. Turned on my phone and there were hundreds of messages in the email, on the social media, on text, on WhatsApp, on whatever. And of just like, hey, I heard and I'm so sorry. And like even little personal anecdotes, like you have no idea how much this meant to me or that meant to me. And I was like, okay, Mom, but no, it wasn't just Mom.
No, I remember.
I'm sure it was every
everyone.
single person. Yeah.
I remember when we all got the notice.
And people just,
we all got told,
Yeah.
there was like it just spread like wildfire. Oh my gosh. Sending prayers,
It really
sending
did.
light, Dr.
Yeah.
B. It just was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it like, oh, you're so loved. That's how loved you are. You've made such an impact on so
it was
many
the
people.
only time I really trended. Yeah. I was trending. I was like, wow, I'm so proud of me. And then, but it was so many people said, I'm praying for you. We're praying for you. We have a prayer circle for you. And I honestly, as I read those, first of all, I cried like a baby, an unhappy baby, and with colic and blood in its stool. And I was just, I cried so much.
Oh,
And I felt like my body emptying out from disease, like making space for light and healing to come in. It sounds woo, but that's what it was. And
we're
it
all
was
about woo
after
here.
that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was after that.
We are the
she's
woo.
like, hey, Doc, you know, it was the woo-woo days. It was after that she's like, he seems to be breathing a little bit better, Doctor. And that's how I came out of it. Thank God I first of all, there's some silver linings. Number one, this would never otherwise happen. I was able to binge watch all of Tiger King in like
perfect
2 days.
Yeah.
The best.
And it was
The
very
best.
therapeutic because I was like almost dead. But then I watched Tiger King. I'm like, it could be worse.
That's true.
So there's
It
that.
could be.
It came out at the perfect time. And I also found out I like Cozy Shack vanilla pudding, which I don't know if I ever would have.
I
I
remember
figured it
seeing
out.
that post. Actually, I think you sent me a text message of Cozy Shack vanilla pudding. And I was like, oh, thank God. Okay, he's himself.
He's eating. Yeah. Yeah, that's what she said. There's nobody else here making jokes and asking for food all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to make it. But where I really got it was in synagogue. A bunch, like 20 people got it.
Jeez.
And
wow.
a bunch of them just toughed it out at home. And a bunch of them ended up in the hospital, several in the ICU. A bunch, 2 on ventilators, but nobody died. Thank God nobody died.
Thank goodness.
Wow.
And for me, no long COVID at all.
You didn't have long COVID.
Wow.
I don't have any long COVID. It took a month or so to recover, but I don't have any COVID. And honestly, there is a silver lining, a true one, which is that most people, when they heard I already had it, realized I can't get it again anytime soon.
Yeah.
And when they wanted to go, they needed prenatal chiropractic care. People with sciatic pain to the point where they couldn't walk, or rib pain that was driving them insane. They can't sleep, and babies are breech. And I was like, well, I just want you to know that I already had COVID. And they're like, oh, great. Well, I'll come. I'll bring my partner.
You could continue
except for
care.
Sarah made me go outdoors.
I made him go outdoors in the cold.
Oh my God.
With eye goggles on.
I had
She
goggles
had
on.
hazmat
Yeah, everybody
suit on.
knows that.
She wrapped herself in
I
cling
was like,
wrap.
listen.
Let's
Okay,
put a little hole.
it was 2020, and my baby was due in September, and I definitely was wearing goggles, a crazy hospital mask, and sanitizing
It was like
everything.
N99.
Yeah, exactly. And he was just like cracking up at me. I was like, I know I'll never live this down with you. I know it,
Yes,
but I have to wear this.
Right. And I was like, do you want me to use massage lotion or just use the hand sanitizer?
Yeah.
On your
Hand
like,
sanitizer,
just
probably.
rub the
Just
hand
burn her
sanitizer
skin.
into my back.
Yeah,
Oh
we
my
did Purell
God.
massage.
Oh,
That's
so
right.
funny.
Dr. B, it's so amazing to have you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Mother Days podcast and for sharing so much of your amazing wisdom. And you guys can find Dr. B at the Informed Pregnancy podcast. It's you're also on at Informed Pregnancy on Instagram and at Berlin Wellness. Is that
No, it's Dr. Berlin.
at
drberlin.com.
Dr. Berlin?
But
Okay.
the newest one,
Yeah, is what?
informedpregnancy.tv, which is where you can get all
Tell
of
us
the
about
brand new.
this. Tell us about this.
I made 2 documentaries. We talked about trial of labor,
Yeah.
about VBAC, and heads up about breech. And I was, after the big flare up of them coming out and having all these premieres and screenings, they just kind of fizzled out. And stab in my heart moment would happen when people would call and say, I saw Trial of Labor. I wish I had seen it before I had my baby. I'm like, no, I made it so you could see it before you had your baby. And that was killing me. So I reached out to some of the other filmmakers, and I'm like, how do you get your film like to stay and where people can find it and see it? And they're like, it's a big struggle. And so I just decided I'm going to make a streaming platform where we can take all of these. We have The Business of Being Born, Orgasmic Birth, The Mama Sherpa's Breast Milk. We have a movie about hyperemesis gravidarum, which is not talked about enough. We have a movie about miscarriage. We have a movie about stillbirth. We're covering every topic, but these are not my movies. These are great, powerful movies that have been there and nobody knows how to access them. So we put them all together with web series like The Real Midwives of Los Angeles that we did.
Amazing.
And a bunch of other web series. My wife's workshop is on there, and we're adding more workshops. The Afterbirth Plan. We have workouts like Body by Simone pregnancy workouts. And postpartum and yoga and meditation. Oh, is she an Aussie?
No, I just know her. Yeah, I know Body by Simone. I don't know her personally, but I know her work. Yeah, I used to do some of her like body stuff.
I watch her stuff. I'm eating popcorn and I'm on the sofa, but it's very entertaining.
I love it. Anyway, okay, so say the link again so that everyone can hear it right now.
I'm going to say it right now. The site is called Informed Pregnancy Plus, and you find it either at informedpregnancy.tv or on Android, Apple, and Roku apps.
Cool.
Amazing.
That's amazing, so Dr. B. I didn't even know about that.
Brand new. You should listen to this podcast. You always learn new things.
I know. I should. Listen. Actually, a friend of mine who's having a baby was just writing me the other day and asking me like, what should I have my partner watch? And so I was like telling her about some of your stuff. So now I'll just send her this for your streaming service.
Pregnancy.tv?
Yeah, amazing.
And it's a free trial. Anybody can do a free trial. Check it out and see what you like.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So good. Amazing. Well, you're a dream guest. We've had you on the list for so long, and I'm so glad we finally made it happen.
Same. I miss you guys so much.
I know. We miss you.
I hope there's more babies coming or something. I
hope
miss you guys big time.
I need to bring my shoulders are full of rocks, so I got to bring them in anyway. So
I have a Red Bull. I'll be ready for you.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, you guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks, Dr. B. Bye. Bye, Daisy.
Thank you so much.